Mridanga player? You play Mridanga a little bit? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Vishwahad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Stadra Sadashi Srimad His Divine Grace Ace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya His Divine Grace Ace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21, entitled Conversation Between Manu and Kardama, Text 21. No, sorry, Text 12. Jata. Thank you. Jata Haso Patan Mudna Chito Labda Manorata Kivistva Vyagrinat Priti Svabhavatma Kritanjali Jatahasho Patan Mudna Shito Labda Manorata Gibistva Vyagrinat Priti Sabhavatma Kritanjali Chatahasho Patan Mudna Shito Labda Manorata Gibistva Vyagrinat Priti Svabhavatma Kritanjali Ladies, Hivishta Vyagrinat Priti Svabhavatma Kritanjali Jatahasha, naturally jubilant. Apatat, he fell down. Murdna, with his head. Shito, on the ground. Labda, having been achieved. Manarataha, his desire. Gibi, with prayers, to and Abhyagrinat, he satisfied. Priti Svabhava Atma, whose heart is by nature always full of love. Kritanjali, with folded hands. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When Kadama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart naturally full of love of God, with folded hands he satisfied the Lord with prayers. Please repeat, when Kadama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desires was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances under the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart naturally full of love of God. With folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers. Purport. The realization of the personal form of the Lord is the highest perfectional stage of yoga. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where yoga practice is described, the realization of the personal form of the Lord is called the perfection of yoga. After practicing the sitting postures and other regulative principles of the system, one finally reaches the stage of samadhi, absorption in the Supreme. In the samadhi stage, one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his partial form as Paramatma, or as he is. Samadhi is described in authoritative yoga scriptures such as the Patanjali Sutras to be a transcendental pleasure. The yoga system described in the books of Patanjali is authoritative, and the modern so-called yogis who have manufactured their own ways, not consulting the authorities, are simply ludicrous. The Patanjali yoga system is called Ashtanga Yoga. Sometimes impersonalists pollute the Patanjali yoga system because they are monists. Patanjali describes that the soul is transcendently pleased when he meets the Supersoul and sees him. If the existence of the Supersoul and the individual is admitted, then the impersonalist theory of monism is nullified. Therefore, some impersonalists and void philosophers twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga system. According to Patanjali, when one becomes free from all material desires, he attains his real transcendental situation, and realization of that stage is called spiritual power. In material activities, a person engages in the modes of material nature. The aspirations of such people are 1, to be religious; 2, to be economically enriched; 3, to be able to gratify the senses; and at last 4, to become one with the Supreme. According to the monists, when a yogi becomes one with the Supreme and loses his individual existence, he attains the highest stage, called Kaivalya. But actually, the stage of realization of the personality of Godhead is Kaivalya. The oneness of understanding that the Supreme Lord is fully spiritual, and that in full spiritual realization one can understand what he is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Kaivalya. Or in the language of Patanjali, realization of spiritual power. His proposal is that when one is freed from material desires and fixed in spiritual realization of the Self and the Super Self, that is called Chit Shakti. In full spiritual realization, there is a perception of spiritual happiness, and that happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita as the supreme happiness, which is beyond the material senses. Trance is described to be of 2 kinds, sampragyata and asampragyata, or mental speculation and self-realization. In samadhi or asampragyata, one can realize by his spiritual senses the spiritual form of the Lord. That is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. According to Patanjali, when one is fixed in constant realization of the supreme form of the Lord, one has attained the perfectional stage, as attained by Kadama Muni. Unless one attains this stage of perfection, beyond the perfection of the preliminaries of the yoga system, there is no ultimate realization. There are 8 perfections in the Ashtanga Yoga system. One who has attained them can become lighter than the lightest and greater than the greatest, and he can achieve whatever he likes. But even achieving such material success in yoga is not the perfection or the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is described here. Kadama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal form. Devotional service begins with the relationship of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul, or Krishna, and Krishna's devotees. And when one attains it, there is no question of falling down. If through the yoga system one wants to attain the stage of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, but is attracted instead to attainment of some material power, then he is detoured from proceeding further. Material enjoyment, as encouraged by bogus yogis, has nothing to do with the transcendental realization of spiritual happiness. Real devotees of Bhakti Yoga accept only the material necessities of life absolutely needed to maintain the body and soul together. They refrain completely from all exaggerated material sense gratification. They are prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulation, provided they can make progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. Translation: when Kadamba Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart, naturally full of love of God, with folded hands he satisfied the Lord with prayers. Om Jnana Dharandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshumalatam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So it's a very nice story. How great saintly personality, Nityasiddha Kadamba Muni, actually saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that devotional service begins with the relationship of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. When one attains it, there is no question of falling down. So this is the process to understand Krishna, to see Krishna everywhere, to understand one's eternal relationship with Krishna, is devotional service. Bhakti is the name, surrender is the game. So a simple process. The materialists, they're living in illusion. Service paradise, it's sufferer's paradise. So they're an illusion. It should be called surfer's illusion. But here in Govardhana, we're living in service paradise, service paradise. And when the devotees go out and spread Krishna consciousness, whatever place they go to, they turn that into service paradise. An opportunity for them to render loving devotional service and to engage others in loving devotional service. So this is the process exemplified by all the great elevated souls like Kadamba Muni, all the acharyas in our line, down to Srila Prabhupada, that this is the process of Bhakti Yoga. Not that we should just come here and want to be served. Of course, there's 6 loving relationships with the devotees. We serve prasadam, we accept prasadam, we offer gifts, we receive gifts, we reveal our mind in confidence, inquire confidentially. So part of the process is to be served, but even we understand that when we serve the Lord, when we serve devotees, when we serve people in general, that taste is even far greater than being served. So it's a simple secret to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person. And realizing Krishna in person is not just seeing his eternal spiritual form. Of course, this is very wonderful blessing if one is blessed like Kadamba Muni to be able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. But seeing Krishna in person is also seeing his devotees, hearing his pastimes, hearing his instructions, hearing about the wonderful decorations, like previously there's a description in previous verses of how Krishna is adorned with a crown and earrings. He held his characteristic conch disc and mace in 3 of his hands and a white lily in the 4th. And It's free from material contamination in his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies, clad in spotless yellow silk. His lotus face was fringed with slick, dark locks of curly hair. So anything to do with Krishna is as good as seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Just hearing the Bhagavatam. This Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation for Kali Yuga. It's as good as Krishna because every page is full of the name, form, fame and pastimes and creations and devotees of the Lord. Just hearing the Bhagavatam and getting some realization through hearing in the association of devotees, these transcendental pastimes and transcendental ecstasies of Srila Prabhupada and his purports, is realization of the Supreme Lord Krishna, is seeing Krishna. So Krishna is manifested in many different forms, and we're so fortunate in this Kali Yuga, although it's a very horrific age with so many horrible sinful activities going on all around the world, and people completely immersed in ignorance and passion. Still, Krishna has appeared in many, many forms in his holy name, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He's appeared in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. He's appeared in the deity form, in the hearts of the devotees, prasadam. So many ways we can see Krishna. One doesn't have to have any previous qualification before coming to Krishna consciousness. We had no qualification. Prabhupada said, you had no pious activity. I created your pious activity. Practically all of us were immersed in so many sinful activities our whole life before coming to Krishna consciousness. No training, no understanding, not even understanding that we're not this body, we're not the mind, that we don't belong in this material world, that we can't be happy through sense gratification. The whole material society is geared up to, you are the body, real happiness is through the body, enjoying the senses, and you can be successful if you make a lot of money, get a huge mansion, and go on many trips around the world. But where do we see the example of one person even who's happy through this so-called artificial process? People are in constant anxiety and frustration. This is the material world. Kuntha, place full of anxiety, even in the places of so-called enjoyment, in the nightclubs and the brothels and the pubs and the horse races. People are distressed and suffering more. So, so there's many different rungs in the yoga system, and most of the so-called spiritualists, they're following some impersonal path. They think when you get free of all material desires, you can become one with God, or become God. But actually we see that all these different so-called spiritual paths, they're not even becoming free from material desires, because they don't have a bona fide process given by the Lord and his bona fide representatives. Their processes are impersonal, mayavad, concocted, denying the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, what hope is there of becoming even free of material desires, lust, greed, anger, illusion, madness? It's not possible. Even as aspiring devotees, we find it's not easy to become free from material desires. But it's possible, as Srila Prabhupada said, you can be fully Krishna conscious in a moment, or it may take millions of lifetimes, and if you're not sincere, if you're not following the process, then you won't become Krishna conscious. But it's possible even in a moment. And that's what Srila Prabhupada has given us, this whole Krishna consciousness movement, where we can be fully in love with God, with Krishna, fully Krishna conscious, fully ecstatic and happy and free from material desires in a moment, like 24 hours a day, if we just immerse ourselves in this process of bhakti yoga. Bhakti is means loving devotional service to Krishna. This is the natural position of all living entities. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajjakabanaya Shravanadi Shuti Cheti Karayadaya. Pure love for Krishna is within the hearts of all living entities. Cannot be taken away. It's the birthright of all living entities. But by hearing and chanting about Krishna, that natural love comes out. It's not possible to understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's form and qualities and pastimes, entourage, through our blunt material senses. They have to be purified. Tashi Krishna Nabadi Nabhaved Gramindraya Sevan Mokha Hijivana Swayameva Sprachida. Because of our blunt material senses, we cannot understand Krishna. But simply by engaging the tongue, Sevan Mukha Hijivana, simply by engaging the tongue in chanting Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and taking prasadam, tongue automatically becomes purified, all the other senses become purified, and gradually we can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His many different forms. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in 647, this yoga culminates in Bhakti Yoga. Yoginam apasavisham adgathena dharapmana. Krishna says that of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So this is the key. We have to have great faith in this process and always think of Krishna within ourselves and always render loving devotional service. Material world is, especially in Kali Yuga, people are very faithless. They have no faith in anything they can't see. They say, well, if God exists, show me. But Prabhupada says, no, you can't know. Why do you want to see God with your eyes? Why not through your ears? And that's our process. We don't realize God through trying to see God, but through our ears, by hearing from the Supreme Lord and by His representatives like Srila Prabhupada, the Acharya, for the next 10,000 years. We hear these transcendental pastimes and this transcendental philosophy. We hear from the Acharya and Krishna that we're not this body, that we can't be happy through sense gratification, that we don't belong in this material world, that our real home is in the spiritual world, that the process, the bona fide process given in the bona fide shastras in Kali Yuga is simply to chant the holy name, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It's the most powerful process. This is Krishna himself. Krishna's fully manifest in his holy name. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna sincerely and with a pure heart and rendering devotional service with a pure heart, then Krishna manifests himself in our heart, and he's dancing on our tongue. And we get so many realizations. Like this great British minister back in the 1930s, he came to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he had some questions he wanted to ask. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, well, first maybe you can go and help my disciples in the kitchen, polish the brass utensils, wash some pots. So he did that. He was a humble man. He went and did some service, and he came back after some time, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you have some questions? And the man said, they've already been satisfied. They've all been answered. So we also have some experience sometimes when we do some service with love and devotion for Krishna and our spiritual master and pleasing the devotees, then we feel purification, just like when you're scrubbing the pots, right? Sometimes the devotees burn the pots, burn the dal, burn the khichdi. There's black on the bottom of the pot. and you're assigned to clean the pots, and you have to scrub really hard to get that black off the pot. But if you scrub hard enough, you can almost see your face in the bottom of the pot. So our hearts are full of so much contamination through previous activities and many lifetimes of, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex, so many lusty desires, so many ignorant activities. Our hearts are very, very dark, but by this cleansing process, then the hearts can become very pure. Just like that verse that states that an expert alchemist, he can transform base metal into gold by mixing it in an alchemical process with mercury. So similarly, the bona fide spiritual master can transform an iron-like conditioned soul into a pure lover of Krishna, lover of God, through the bona fide process of devotional service. And as Srila Prabhupada said, my devotees previously, they were drug-addicted, meat-eating, sex-mongering hippies, and now they're looking like they're residents of Goloka and Vrindavan, smiling ear to ear, dancing and chanting in ecstasy, wearing dhoti and sari and tilak and neck beads, and bright-faced and eagerly serving Krishna and spreading Krishna's glories. So this process of bhakti also is mentioned, Krishna mentions in the 18th chapter, Bhakya mam abhijanati avanyas tasmi tatvata tatomam tatvato gyatva vishitet had anantaram. Says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So, in order to fully understand our eternal relationship with Krishna and understand the transcendental nature of Krishna, of course it's not a cheap thing. It may take at least one lifetime or many lifetimes, but as we said before, if we're very fortunate, we may realize Krishna very, very quickly. But this is the key, that we have to do all our activities, all our service with devotion, with loving devotion. We can render service in Krishna consciousness with mixed motives. Some people, and we may experience sometimes, we're rendering service with mixed motives. We want some maybe recognition or some fame, name, adoration, distinction. No. We want attention because, we cooked a nice offering, or we dressed the deities so nicely, or we managed the farm so nicely, or we distributed so many books. But we shouldn't be looking for any of this name, fame, or adoration, just performing the activity for the pleasure of Guru and Gauranga, and to assist Srila Prabhupada in spreading Krishna consciousness. And always realizing our infinitesimal position, that we're very, very small. Like once Srila Prabhupada was talking to one of the managers in Los Angeles, and he was saying to the manager that out of the whole creation, the spiritual world, it's very, very vast. It's unlimited. And the material world, although it's limited, it's very, very vast, but it's like a cloud in the corner of the sky compared to the spiritual world. So in that material world, billions and billions of universes and billions of planets, we're in one universe, Srila Prabhupada said, and there's billions of planets in this one universe, and this is like one of the smallest planets. Lord Brahma only has 4 heads here. In other universes he has 1,000, 1,000,000, 1 billion heads. And so Prabhupada was saying to this manager that there's millions of planets, and we're in one small planet, the Earth planet. And on this planet there's many, many countries. And out of all the countries, there's one country, America, which is only a small part of the planet Earth. And in America there's thousands of cities. And when we're in one city, Los Angeles, which comprises only a small amount of the whole landmass of America. And in Los Angeles, many, many suburbs. And each suburb has many, many streets, and we're in one house in one of those streets, the Hare Krishna temple, and here's the manager of the temple thing. He is very, very important. So even Lord Brahma, he gets humbled because once he went to Dwarka to see Krishna, and he came and to the doorkeepers, he said, "I've come to see Krishna," and they said, "Just wait." And so he said, "I'm Lord Brahma, I've come to see Krishna," and they said, "Wait, we'll go and see Krishna and see if it's all right for you to come in." And they went to see Krishna and they came back. Krishna asked the servants, the doorkeepers, "Can you ask him which Lord Brahma he is?" So they came back and they said, "Which Lord Brahma are you?" And he was thinking, "What do you mean, which Lord Brahma? You know, I'm Lord Brahma of the creation." And they said, "Anyway, and you can come in." So he came into Dwarka and into the palace of Krishna, and he bowed down. He was very humble, and he was offering prayers to Krishna. And then he said, "No, my Lord, I was just inquisitive why you are asking your servants to ask me which Lord Brahma I am." And just at that moment, Krishna smiled, and immediately he manifest all the other Brahmas from all the other universes, and some of them had 10 heads, some had 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, 10 million heads, and they're all bowing down very humbly to Krishna. And wasn't it that he also brought all the Shivas from the different universes as well? So our Lord Brahma felt like a little ant amongst many elephants. So this is Lord Brahma. So how humble should we feel? Never get affected by pride, because pride cometh before the fall. And in Kali Yuga we all understand that a pauper is proud of his penny, right? People have nothing, or we have nothing. Even materially, people are, very inept. They don't have, much ability, or they don't have much wealth, but still they get very proud of whatever they have, whatever little they have. So we have to be careful that we don't get proud if we take on a position in Krishna consciousness, or we're successful in doing some sort of service and we get proud. You should always understand that we're not the doer, Krishna's the doer. Kamani avari kariste mafalesho kadachana mahapala kama hetubu mate sangos kamani. Krishna says in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the results. Never consider yourself the cause of the result of your activity, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So we're not the cause, it's not for our pleasure, the result. We should understand that our opportunity is just to render service 24 hours a day. And this will protect us from Maya, from falling back into the illusions of the material world. Because just like if you have a cup of milk, it's full to the brim, and you try to put some ink in, it won't penetrate. But if the cup is not completely full and you pour the ink in, it will pollute the milk. So if our cup is full of Krishna consciousness 24 hours a day, we're always thinking of Krishna's pastimes, thinking of Krishna's form, thinking of ways to spread Krishna's glories, how to bring other people to Krishna consciousness, how to be engaged ourselves in Krishna's service, externally engaging in so many activities of service. There's no room for Maya to enter. Even we can be in the busiest city of the world, the most hellish places, Sydney, Melbourne, New York, Brisbane, London. We won't be affected by the enticing material pleasures of the material world. And the greatest pleasure of the material world is the attraction for the opposite sex. So the whole material world is bamboozled by this attraction. And people work hard all their life to achieve this pleasure. Which is very temporary pleasure. And the more one tries to indulge in these pleasures of sex life and different types of sense gratification, the more one becomes dissatisfied and disgusted and frustrated. The whole material world is a pavaga. Apavaga means liberation from this process of sense gratification and working hard to achieve material goals in this material world. But pavaga means that people go through these processes of working hard. They work long hours, and Prabhupada says they work hard so much that they foam at the mouth, and then they're frustrated and bewildered, and they die. So this is the whole process of material life. People working hard for insignificant pleasures, and at the end of their life, what have they achieved? It's all taken away at the time of death. Can't even take this material body with you. But in Krishna consciousness, we can, through this simple process of bhakti yoga, loving devotional service, then we can achieve the highest destination, the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, the topmost planet in the spiritual world, where life is eternal, full of happiness, full of knowledge, and we have opportunity to render loving devotional service to Krishna and his associates eternally. And even in this material world, devotees can be completely satisfied, completely happy, completely ecstatic. Anandam Bodhivardhanam. It's an ever-increasing ocean of pleasure. And the more we dive into Krishna consciousness, the more we become freed from all anxiety, the more we become fully happy, and the more we develop our attachment for Krishna. It's a natural, automatic process. As stated in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Pareshana Bhavo Virakti Anyatra Chaisha Trika Ekakala. That devotion to Krishna, detachment from the material world and material pursuits, and developing transcendental knowledge of Krishna and our eternal relationship, these three things come automatically with every step we take in devotional service. Just as when you eat a nice meal or prasadam, you feel nourishment, freedom from hunger, and pleasure is automatically experienced. So it's not just theoretical, but we experience that every day. We're feeling great satisfaction and more attachment and gradual love for Krishna and love for everything connected with Krishna, including all these parts and parcels, all living entities. We should feel more and more love and feeling for the devotees, for all living entities in general. And so this process actually, it's very, very powerful. It actually works. It actually can purify even the most contaminated souls, and that's all of us. We're all Jagai and Madais, coming from very fallen backgrounds. Jagai and Madai, the epitome of personalities of Kali Yuga, thieves, drug addicts, prostitute hunters, meat eaters, gamblers. Prabhupada said a few hundred years ago, in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, there was only a few Jagai Madhas. Now we're saving wholesale Jagai Madhas. Kali Yuga is rapidly increasing. So we're experiencing ourselves that even though we're so far away from Krishna consciousness, now we're feeling that Krishna consciousness more and more is very natural and it's our life 24 hours a day. If we enthusiastically, with determination and patience and confidence, as Rupa Goswami stresses in the Nectar of Instruction, these favourable things, if we accept these favourable things for Krishna consciousness, we can feel that gradually this process is becoming more and more natural, and it's we're enthusiastic. We just want to jump out of bed every day to render service and to associate with devotees and to dance in kirtan and to spread Krishna consciousness. In the beginning it may be artificial. It is artificial in the beginning because for millions of lifetimes we haven't been practicing devotional service. So it may be very hard to listen to this philosophy, or it may be hard to just dance for an hour or two on end and chant, or to go out and preach Krishna consciousness, or to, avoid going to, all sorts of places of material pleasure, restaurants and nightclubs and libraries and theatres and like this. We have to control the mind. But when we become gradually purified, then it's not difficult to stop our mind from going to these places of insignificant pleasure. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in the sixth chapter, maybe it's not the sixth chapter, but he says that Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anushmara yujita. Therefore you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you'll attain me without doubt. So he says to Arjuna, while you're engaged in fighting on this battlefield of Kurukshetra, you're a Kshatriya externally, but you should also think of me in the form of Krishna at the same time. So we have to practice externally. We're rendering so many services, but at the same time always think of Krishna internally. As these beautiful descriptions of the Lord, his beautiful features, his beautiful hair, his garland, his weapons, his beautiful colour, his wonderful smiling face. So wherever we are, we have to meditate on these beautiful features of the Lord and meditate on his instructions on how to bring other people to Krishna consciousness. And we can see so many people coming here. So many people, due to the Sankirtan movement spreading, many people have received prasadam over the years and books and the holy name. So Krishna's sending so many people here. If we just spread the Sankirtan movement, go out and chant in the streets, the more we chant in the streets, the more we go out and distribute these books to the masses and prasadam, the more Krishna will inspire people who didn't even necessarily have contact with devotees to come and take up this Krishna consciousness. That was another verse I was just going to read in the 6th chapter also. Krishna says that 6:45, and when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavour in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then ultimately achieving perfection after many births of practice, he attains the ultimate goal. I was thinking it was the previous verse actually. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So we see this because people have rendered loving devotional service to Krishna in many lifetimes previously. They automatically become attracted to hearing this philosophy, or to kirtan, or to prasadam, or to associating with devotees. It's just natural when they come here. Some people, they just surrender on the spot. They want to join the first day they come to the temple, right? And other people, they come for years and years and they still can't surrender. The penny doesn't drop. They just can't understand. It doesn't click. So that's due to past devotional service. So we have to give people the opportunity they can render loving devotional service so that in this life or the next lifetime they can gradually take this process up fully, perfect their lives and achieve this perfection, loving Krishna and being fully engaged in his service. Does anyone have any questions, comments? We have a microphone available. Krishna. Any comments, realizations, questions, corrections? Yes, Ram Prabhu.
I noticed from the purport, which has disappeared on my phone now, but Prabhupada said that the devotional service begins with a relationship with the devotee and the Supreme Lord, or Krishna and his devotees. And I was thinking that's really interesting, that even at the absolute stage, it's not a relationship of just you and Krishna. It doesn't matter about anyone else, but Krishna's devotees are going to be there. And that, I mean, we know from different scriptures we should worship the devotees as well as even before we worship Krishna. But I thought it was interesting that Prabhupada points out in the ultimate platform, the relationship with his devotees is there.
Yes, very, very good point. The devotees are... No, we read how Krishna says himself that the devotee is more dear than my very self to me. So, and the devotee is to be honoured as much as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We sing that in the morning to the prayers to the Spiritual Master. The Spiritual Master is honoured as much as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he's most confidential servant of the Supreme Lord. So, all devotees are spiritual masters to other devotees and to people in general. Maybe not formally a guru or spiritual master, but any devotee, even a new devotee, has so much more knowledge and understanding than a person on the street. So we can get realization even from the newest bhakta in Krishna consciousness and get inspiration from them. How they're so fixed, how they're so enthusiastic, they're so determined in Krishna consciousness. So yes, we can't serve Krishna like love thy master like love the dog, right? You can't, if you're knocking on someone's door, even if he's a complete stranger, when he opens the door, if you're patting his dog, he's more inclined to, yes, what do you want? How can I help you? So how can we understand and love Krishna if we're not looking after his very loving servants, and if we're not caring for all his children, the living entities in general, by giving them Krishna consciousness as well? Prahlad Maharaj says, I see many saintly persons in the Himalayas, but they're only interested in their own liberation. They don't care to go to the big towns and cities to give Krishna consciousness to the people in general. But Prahlad Maharaj says, I'm more interested to go to the big cities and towns and bring all these unfortunate people back to your lotus feet. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Apashadam ki jai.